Hey, how's things? Just a quick video. Just want to quickly run through, take no more than hopefully 10 minutes, just to explain the differences between anaerobic and aerobic cardio exercise and to answer a very common question that I get. Am I doing too much cardio? So it does depend on your goals, and we'll dive straight into it here. So hopefully you can see the screen. Let's jump in. Okay, so here we go. Am I doing too much cardio? Okay, so I suppose the first thing we need to distinguish the difference between is the types of cardio that we're talking about here. So, just moving on to this slide, what is cardio? So, a lot of people may not even know what cardio is. Generally we think of cardio of being just, I guess, long distance running or something that we do over a long period of time. And you would be correct in saying that because if we look at the right side of the screen here, aerobic exercise or aerobic cardio is longer duration, lower intensity exercise using little or no oxygen. So basically it would be your typical long distance run, and you're using little or no oxygen when you're doing aerobic activity. And just then some examples of that are, as I said, distance running, jogging, swimming, cycling, walking. And actually, you could nearly also say that lower intensity base level cardio could be considered at an aerobic level as being hoovering the floor or mopping. Anything that involves doing something for a long period at a time at a low intensity would be considered aerobic cardio, using very little oxygen and doing it at a slowish, manageable pace, if you like. Then anaerobic is polar opposite in its effect. It has we do it over a shorter duration of time. It's usually a higher intensity exercise using lots of oxygen. Okay, so anaerobic usually would be your typical HIIT training, intervals type training, circuits, sprinting, weightlifting, resistance type training. Also on this side of it, running, as we say here, if you're talking about interval running or sprinting, high and low intensity, you would be moving from here over to here. So it's an anaerobic exercise then. So hopefully that makes sense in relation to what is cardio, first of all, and then we'll come back to your questions. So these typically, when we think of a cardio session or a cardio exercise, you've got elliptical trainers, stationary bikes. Again, depending on the intensity, your rope jumping and things like that can be done at a long distance or a long duration at a medium to low intensity. Walking, treadmill, jogging, running, all of these things, recumbent bike, step mills, even a rower, yeah, you could use it for anaerobic, but generally we would talk about maybe getting on there for doing a row at a long distance. So unless we're going at high intensity with high weight and increasing overload and things like that, it would then become more explosive in relation to the anaerobic side of things. So generally that's what we look at as being cardio, okay? So then moving on here, aerobic versus anaerobic exercise, which is the best for fat burning, which is the best for weight loss? The important thing to point out here is both can benefit for weight loss, but I guess just distinguishing what one does to your body in relation to the other one and what's the benefit of using one over the other. I would suggest bringing both of them into your workout routine. I think both of them are good, but the problem people have is to spend a little bit too much of their time and energy on aerobic, and to think that could be the answer to everything, especially when you're talking about burning calories or losing weight. So aerobic energy targets your slow twitch muscle fibers, okay, which is good for cardiovascular condition. It's good for your heart, and it improves overall endurance as well. So it has its place, and I certainly do recommend that aerobic exercise. And starting out as well, that low intensity and low level aerobic exercise may be a good way to start. Anaerobic then is, you're targeting your fast twitch muscle fibers. So we're using sometimes in explosive energy creatine phosphate where it's explosive, and we run out of energy quite quickly because of its quick burn of oxygen. We're using a lot of oxygen in the muscles, and but the good thing about it is when you rest, you're able to do it again. And a high intensity session, you can do an anaerobic session in far shorter time burning the same amount of calories that you would do in quite a long time in an aerobic session. So, for example, if you do a HIIT session and it's 45 minutes long, including your rest periods, and then you do a 45-minute jog at a very slow pace, I should say, you're getting far more out of your anaerobic session in less time. So if time constraints is an issue for you and you're trying to fit in your workouts and you only have a certain amount of time to do that, well, then certainly anaerobic is the one to choose. But here's the thing, though. You burn more calories in this period of time, okay? And that's important to note because, listing this as a benefit, saving time is one thing, but burning more calories in that amount of time is the key for weight loss and caloric expenditure at the end of the day. Because look at the higher your workout is, the higher intensity the workout is, the more calories you're going to burn. Okay, rather than jumping on and casually riding your bike or going for a short walk or a stroll over 30-40 minutes, the more intensity in the workout, the more calories you're going to burn. And that's important to note that going forward when you're thinking about which exercise to do. I guess another thing on that there as well is the afterburn effect. Okay, but before I say that, the increased metabolism, I'm not skipping past that. So when we do resistance training, for example, or we do a high intensity type session, and this is where I say to people, don't be afraid to lift weights, because ladies and females in particular are afraid of bulking up when they lift weights. And I've put another post up on this, and I can share that with you if you haven't seen it. Comment below and I'll tag you in it or send it to you. But it's important to note that when we're building muscle, that you're not going to bulk up. Women have like 20-30 times less testosterone than men, and the chances of you building bulk and being noticeably big because of weightlifting is not going to happen. So I wouldn't worry about that. But what will happen is you'll recruit more muscle fibers and you'll start to increase your muscle strength, and you'll start to you get more powerful and have more energy. But here's the thing as well: muscle burns fat. Okay, so the likes of hitting your fast twitch muscle fibers, it's far more engaging for strength. You're using up oxygen very quickly, and you're increasing muscle mass. And muscle eats fat, and that's it. And this increases your metabolism, and that's the key to anaerobic exercise in relation to burning fat better than aerobic. So I hope that makes sense. And then lastly on that there is the afterburn effect. So again, I'm going to actually put a link to this one because it's very important. The EPOC is it's basically excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, okay, EPOC, and that another term for that is the afterburn effect. So, and I'll put the link on the bottom of this in a comment, and you can have a look at that post that I explain that a little bit more in detail. I won't go into it now, but basically it's how you burn more calories during a HIIT session or an anaerobic session, and how your system actually in your body burns more calories afterwards as well. So post-exercise consumption of oxygens and burning calories. And so that's the difference between anaerobic and aerobic. I guess, it answers itself really. Which is better for weight loss? Well, if you want to do more in a shorter space of time and you want to burn more calories between sessions, you want to increase your metabolism and get more energy and strength and definition, it's going to happen with anaerobic, but it's not going to happen with aerobic, or aerobic, because when we have resistance training and we're have progressive overload, we can start lifting more, getting stronger, and that can only be done with anaerobic training. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm not saying one is bad or the other is good. I'm saying if you're doing both, that's great, but it's to just know the difference and know which one you're doing, and not do more aerobic where you should really probably be focusing more of your energy on anaerobic. And that leads me on to this one. Here are 5 common mistakes that people make when doing cardio sessions or when they go out on their own and they say, well, I'm going to get back training now after Christmas and I'm going to start doing my runs and get back and lose weight and tone up. If you're trying to lose weight and tone up and you're just doing aerobic cardio sessions, you're losing out. You're not going to reach your goals. You'll go to a certain extent and then you'll plateau. And that's a common thing that happens. And that's why I wrote these 5 cardio mistakes here. There could be more, and I've even the first one here, I've kind of pulled them into one. These could be 1 or 2, but no varied intensity or movement. So basically what that means is that if you're doing long distance jogging, walking, elliptical trainer, whatever it is, and I always say to people, it's good to adapt to exercise. But when we're talking about progressive overload and building muscle and toning up, adaptation is actually your enemy. And when you get efficiency in your intensity, and you're not increasing it, and you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to see any. You are going to plateau, and you're not going to see any increase in muscle tone or definition, and certainly you're not going to get any stronger. And the same thing with movement. When I say you're getting this issue is just in relation to intensity, but also if we're moving the same way. So if it's constantly on the treadmill, or if you're out running, or if it's cycling, and that's all you do, and you don't do anything else, that's fine. And we do get efficiency, and I've it written here at the back, like getting efficiency in your movement is fine, but the very same thing in intensity. If we get adaptation and efficiency, we need to challenge ourselves to make a change. So if you do cycling on a Sunday or whatever the case may be, have your next session different. Do something else, like get on a rowing machine or have variations in the movement, because somebody who cycles all of the time and that's all they ever do in relation to exercise, as soon as you ask them to move left or move right laterally or do a burpee or do something different than that, they just won't sustain that movement, and they've just totally adapted to one type of training. So that's why I'm saying there's no varied intensity or movement in, and that's a big mistake that people make when they just focus on cardio. So the second one there is not segregating cardio and resistance. So what I mean by that is if you're doing cardio before a resistance session or in between, so you see some people in the gym maybe and they lift heavy weights and then they do a cardio session or they do something in between that and their next lift, that's not recommended for me, because I believe that when you're in the gym and you're doing a resistance training, especially if we're looking for progressive overload and we're adding a little bit of weight, burning oxygen and not getting efficient rest in between those lifts means you're weaker when you go about lifting. You're after burning your energy, and resistance training and progressive overload is about volume. And so I would say people would make a mistake at times by doing cardio before a weight session. I would always say do it the other way around. If you were going to do some cardio after your resistance training session, that's not so bad, but I would even separate them and not do them on the same day at all. So maybe you do a 2-day split where you have your workouts on 2 different days, and then you have your cardio session in between or on a different day. And that's what I mean by segregating cardio. People make that mistake. So number 3 then is another common mistake, cardio in non-fasting state. So you might say, what the hell does that mean? Well, basically, when you a lot of people ask me, when should I eat before a session? And it does depend a lot on many factors, and it depends on your goals. My apologies. So what I would say on this one is cardio in non-fasting state. So here's the thing. If we run on an empty stomach, or if you do a cardio session, I'm talking about an aerobic session more so here, but anaerobic as well, okay? We're talking about the sympathetic nervous system. So when you actually stress the body a little bit, okay, we release adrenaline, epinephrine, like we that's what happens to the body, and we go into a kind of a stress state. But it's safe. We know what we're doing when it happens, but your body releases these hormones. And another one as well, adenosine monophosphate is released, and what that does is it tells your body basically to burn from your stores. So it starts to burn fats from your stores quicker if you work out on an empty stomach. Now, I don't mean go starve yourself all day. I mean just don't eat too close to your session, and make sure that you're working out on an empty stomach. And this helps with metabolism. Like weight training drives metabolism, and again, muscle burns more fat. But when you go into this, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. This allows fatty acids to be released, and this is why we switch towards our storage for burning. Okay, but here's the thing: that can only happen. It only occurs when insulin is not present. Okay, so when insulin is present, this won't happen, and this won't accelerate as easy or as quickly. But when we eat food, insulin is present. Okay, so when we have an empty stomach and we do a cardio session, this other process happens and accelerates far quicker, and tends to burn more fat from your stores. I hope I've explained that properly, that you can understand. But generally, people ask that question about when should I eat, and I would always say, don't eat too close to training. Try and go to your session with an empty stomach. Get your protein and get your food in afterwards. But again, this is cardio during or before weights. It's a kind of a tilt on from this one, not segregating cardio and resistance within the training, and then this is cardio during or before weights. So if you're lifting weights and progressive overload is your goal, don't do cardio before or during. And then the last one there, relying on cardio for weight loss and tone. So a lot of people, like I said, jump out, they're right, I'm going to lose a few pounds, and they may well lose a few pounds, okay? But here's the thing: if you're just out doing low intensity cardio, you will lose a few pounds, and all the benefits that I mentioned earlier about healthier heart and all that. Cardio is good. Any type of exercise is good. There's no bad exercise, okay? If it's safe to do and you're able to do it, it's good for you. But if you have a specific goal of losing weight and getting toned up and having muscle definition, and you're just relying on aerobic cardio for weight loss and tone, well, then you're missing out. It's not going to happen for you. So this is the thing, a little bit of education in balancing out your workouts, that anaerobic weight training, resistance training is far more efficient for weight loss and burning fat for many, many reasons. And that's what I find with my clients. I'm actually trying to get some of them to do less cardio, and if you're watching this, you probably know who you are. There's one or two, and it's basically just a mindset where to try and adjust your workouts to suit your goals, and obviously everybody's goals are different. But if it is weight loss and tone, you're going to get far more benefit out of resistance training and anaerobic training. I hope that has helped, and here is the answer. So, am I doing too much cardio? Well, I guess yes. And the reason I'm saying yes is because if you're asking that question, okay, you've already asked the question, am I doing too much cardio? That means you are probably focusing all your energy on cardio. If you've introduced it, as I have mentioned below or earlier, and I'll leave some comments below on this as well, and I'd love to hear your feedback, or if you have a different opinion on it, or if you have any questions, please do shoot them out. But the answer is that if you're asking this question, the chances are you are focusing too much energy on cardio, and the important thing is that you're getting rest periods in between and not doing the same thing over and over at the same pace. I hope this was some benefit to you. Wait till I go back. I hope it was some benefit to you. What I would say is, don't make a full-on decision on what I've just said to you. If you have any questions on it, feel free to ask. I will give you the best answer that I can give. But the main thing is to note that 90% of most people's issues is not their exercise plan. It's usually their meal plan. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to shout them out. I'd be more than happy to help. Okay, talk soon. Take care.